Welcome everybody to Impact at Work. This is a podcast where we show you strategies and techniques to boost your impact in the office. Over the coming weeks and months, you'll hear about strategies to boost your influence through self-awareness, understanding your own behavior and that of others, communicating with power, being highly productive and competing. There's a lot packed into this show, but stick with it and I can guarantee it will boost your impact and influence with everyone that you deal with. In the first season, which is this season, we'll talk about how to get out of your own way by understanding how you behave. If you're a regular listener to the show, you'll notice I record and edit on the fly while walking and counting steps. You'll hear the sounds of nature, but just walk with me. This week, we're going to talk about motivation, purpose, and drivers. It seems that we all increasingly expect a sense of purpose from the work that we do. One of my favourite columnists from the Financial Times, Andrew Hill, talks about purpose and says that cynicism about purpose is a disease that needs fighting. I think we all find that purposeful people are compelling and attract our attention. But he goes on to talk about cynicism and that most of us would rather just get a paycheck and be able to go home on time. It seems we don't trust the notion of corporate purpose, a message that's been polished by corporate marketeers a million miles from the reality of delivering performance. But does that mean we can all live without that sense of purpose? Andrew Hill says, assuming work has no meaning leads to drift, disillusionment and self-deception. Well, I think you first have to separate out making lots of money, which is the big elephant in the room, and see what remains. Maybe a good test is how many companies in your industry work as not-for-profits, or maybe even how many hobbyists are in your industry, suggesting that they're doing it for some other purpose beyond making money. The key is having a sense of purpose, even if that means making lots of money, which is perfectly legitimate in its own right. But there's another way to think about purpose and motivation. In another article by Inc. magazine talks about following your passion is necessary for engagement and eventual success, or is putting your passion center stage the recipe for financial ruin and unhappiness. Psychologist from the University of Pennsylvania, Scott Barry Kaufman, thinks not all passion and purpose are the same. He talks about harmonious passion, which is something that feels good and is worth doing for its own sake. He talks about integrating that into your identity. And then there's the obsessive passion, which he says is less healthy, which is much more about achievement of an outcome. Maybe you want to please your boss, win an accolade. It's all about win-win-win, says Kaufman. He goes on to say that those with obsessive passions tend to feel more negative over time, and they can hardly stop thinking about their work. Apparently, obsessive passion makes you a miserable workaholic and leads to burnout. The trick, he says, is to interrogate your obsessive passion. Now let's get a bit more specific and talk about very specific motivators to unpick what may be an obsessive passion. Why is it that you get out of bed every day? Fundamentally, there's two chemicals. Is it dopamine or cortisol? Dopamine is a feel-good hormone. Cortisol, on the other hand, comes out when we feel fear. Probably get up to chase a reward, that's the dopamine, or because you fear not doing something, that's the cortisol. Okay, so let's put that into real language. Is it achievement? Big house, big car? Do you want the goals and the trophies? Perhaps it's influence. Maybe it's fear, like we just talked about. The fear of not achieving something, or something you've committed to delivering. Maybe it's comfort that you're seeking, getting to a certain level and then being able to put your feet up. Maybe freedom and autonomy. Maybe you don't want to be told what to do. Affiliation? Perhaps you work for a big brand company and that brand gives you the value. Or maybe it's recognition. Look at this great book that I've written. Most people say they're motivated by money, but often what tends to underlie that is meeting social expectations. It really pays to understand what motivates you every day. The point being, you can't have your greatest impact if you don't follow what motivates you. Your aim, once you've understood what motivates you, is to get more of that in the work that you do. But let me draw your attention to something more tangible, called transactional analysis drivers, framed by Eric Berne in the 1950s. There are 5 of them. Some of us are driven to please others and ourselves, others to be perfect, some to be strong, others to try hard, and some to hurry up. You can think about how these relate to what we learned in the previous podcast about your parenting type, or your child type, or your operating mode. So say, for instance, you're a natural controller. You might have a strong driver to try hard and be strong. If you're an analyst, you might be trying to be perfect. And if you're a promoter, you might have the tendency to hurry up and not listen to the voice of reason and proper analysis and process over your ideas. So now think about what your transactional analysis drivers are and how that has an impact on the work that you do and how you relate to others. Okay, so that ends the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please remember to rate it on iTunes or wherever you've heard it. That helps others discover the podcast so they can make a difference to their careers too. And if you'd like to know more about anything you heard today, please visit 60strategies.com.